Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Everybody, peace. Welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, hosted by the GSMC Podcast Network. As you guys know, I'm your host, Casuan Caudle, and once again, I'm here today to talk to you guys about this wonderful game of basketball. It's just such a blessing to be here today, guys. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. Just being able to talk with you guys about this wonderful game of basketball that I love and that you guys love, obviously. There's been a lot of news, a lot of things that have been going on this past week in basketball, in the world of basketball. And today we're going to primarily stick with the NBA landscape. A lot of things have been going on, a lot of news, a lot of people returning from injuries. Unfortunately, a lot of injuries occurring as well. A lot of teams surprisingly on hot streaks. A lot of teams surprisingly playing consistent. And it's interesting. It's going to be nice to see. But we got a lot on the show today, guys. We're going to be talking about the Nuggets and Warriors game. And Steph Curry apparently is still on an amazing streak. Amazing hot streak. And Draymond Green once again set a career high in his assists. We're also going to be talking about the Nuggets injury woes. We're going to also be talking about the recent winning streak that the Wizards are on. The Wizards back in playoff contention. Who would have thought? We're also going to be talking about the Knicks. Yes, the New York Knickerbockers. And their surprising resurgence as well, and how they've been able to move about this year. And also we're going to be talking about how to deal with difficult coaches. We all have them. We've all had them at some point. And is there a method? Is there a certain way to deal with them and to interact with them as a player, whether it be at the college, professional, or even high school level? With that being said, let's get into it. We're going to start out today with Anthony Davis and his return from his injury and how he performed. As you guys know, Anthony Davis missed the last 9 weeks due to a calf injury suffered on February 14th. He missed the last, like I said, past 30 games. The Lakers went, I believe, 17, and they were about 500, I think, or a little below 500 with Anthony Davis being gone because LeBron got hurt during that time as well. But he returned against the Dallas Mavericks. He is on a minutes restriction, of course. And he played a total of 17 minutes. He shot 2 for 10 from the field, 0 for 1 from the three-point line, 0 for 2 from the free throw line. Grabbed 4 rebounds, had an assist, had a steal, had a block, 1 turnover, and finished with 4 points and a plus minus of -11. Now, we have to understand that Anthony Davis missed 9 weeks, and the Lakers were very particular and very strict with his workout regimen or recovery regimen. They didn't let him get on the basketball court at all. They didn't let him move around at all. He was strictly could only do rehab. And as a basketball player, not being able to get up and down the court, or not being able to get on the court, quite frankly, in general, is going to throw off your rhythm for 9 weeks. The best thing you can do now is just do stationary ball handling and what we call shots and share, where you just keep your form correct. So that's probably what Anthony Davis is doing, just to keep his form correct since he can't get up and down the court. And he probably wasn't able to get on the court until like maybe 2 weeks ago to get up and down, get his wind back, and get that basketball rhythm back. So it's understandable why Anthony Davis, performed the way he did. But with any athlete that has dealt with injuries at some point in their career, you understand what it's like to have the nerves and the butterflies of going back into a game, your first game from injury, and you feel like you don't want to re-injure yourself. So some players are gimpy, some players are moving a little timid because they're worried about re-injuring themselves, and it's interesting to see that Anthony Davis, when I watched the game, he didn't move nervous or timidly or like he was worried about getting injured. He looked healthy. He looked fine. You could tell he was a little winded, but he didn't look gimpy. He didn't like he was favoring a certain side. He looked like he could move around quite a bit. And that's a positive sign for the Lakers, that he didn't look gimpy. And he also appeared to be in rhythm in the sense that it won't take long for him to get his wind back. He was able to move around quite a bit. You could tell his touch was off, though, especially when he would get it in the mid post or a little bit extended out. You could tell his touch was off. But I like the fact that he was aggressive. He shot 10 field goals in 17 minutes, which means that he's working on getting back into his rhythm. Because at the end of the day, especially for basketball players, the only way to really get in a basketball shape or find basketball rhythm is to play 5-on-5 basketball. I mean, it sucks, but that's just how it is. We can do all the training, the one-on-one training, the shell training, the skeleton training. We can do all the shots, on the shooting machine and all that. But the only way to really get a true rhythm is to shoot and play 5-on-5 at the end of the day. And that's just how it is, but they, but he looked good. So that's no surprise to me that Anthony Davis, he struggled shooting. But I do want to talk about not his playing style, but where he was catching the ball. I don't like that he was catching it so often at the mid post and the wing area. I know that he can operate out there, but Anthony Davis is so agile and so swift that when he gets it in the low post, he's such a strong presence with his agility down there. And whenever he gets it down there, there's not going to be many post players that can stay in front of him. So what I wish he would have done is he would have caught it in the low post and worked his rhythm, because you want to get the best way as a basketball player to get your confidence started in the game is you want to see the ball go in, right? So get an easy bucket, get a layup, or shoot a free throw. Because once you see the ball go in, the rim starts to get bigger and your confidence starts to increase. And you start to feel better. I mean, you know what I mean? So what we do is what I wish Anthony Davis would have done is he would have, like I said, started out in a low post, get a couple hook shots, or maybe even turnaround jumpers, or even face-up jumpers to see the ball go in, then slowly expand out to the wing and the mid post, and then he can, work out from there. Fortunately, though, Anthony Davis is still a solid player, so he was still able to get to his spot in the mid post, but because he hadn't formed that rhythm and he hadn't found that touch yet, the ball just wasn't going. But he did miss a couple layups as well. But once again, I think that's just due to the rust. But I think if he would have stayed in the low post, even after missing that first layup, he would have been able to find his rhythm a little more. And I heard him say a quote that he likes to catch the ball on the left post as opposed to the right post. And he likes to get the ball at the top of the key on early action. Early action is just like when there's a high ball screen or a handoff action to initiate the secondary break. And I thought to myself, so he needs to be telling that to Frank Vogel to catch it. He wants to get it on the left post. And so what Vogel should have done is allow Anthony Davis to work solely on the left post. And once you see the AD starts to get in the rhythm, then we can start to move him over to the right post, then the mid post, and so forth and so on until he gets out to the wing. But Anthony Davis needs to be assertive and demand the ball on the left post. But it's but he needs to continue to work from the left post so he gets in the rhythm, then slowly starts to move out. But fortunately, the Lakers do have time. They have an ample amount of time for Anthony Davis to get his rhythm back. He doesn't look gimpy, like I say. He looks fine. He doesn't look hurt. Like he just needs to get his rhythm back. Defensively, he looked well. He looked good. He had a good block on Porzingis that showed his athleticism and showed that he had his burst back. So I wasn't worried about Anthony Davis defensively, which is good. Which is especially when returning from an injury, that's a part of a player's game that you worry about and that you want to see is still there. So Anthony Davis didn't have that problem defensively. I was actually more worried about offensively, his ability to get his rhythm back. Defensively, he looked solid, which was actually surprising to me, which is also a good sign. But overall, the game, this was the best game that Dennis Schroeder played. I mean, Dennis Schroeder he shot 9-13 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3-point line, 5 of 6 free throws, 2 rebounds, 13 assists. He fouled out, but he had a plus-minus of 2 and finished with 25 points. That was Schroeder's best game. And you can see how effective these point guards can be, especially when LeBron's not on the court and they have a solid player. And because what's going to happen is Anthony Davis is going to draw attention naturally just off his presence. And so it opens up the lane for guys like Schroeder and even Caldwell Pope and Kuzma and Drummond and Morris and Montrez. And it allows more spacing for Schroeder to make decisions and to play make. And so even with the presence of Davis, that's the added bonus for the guards, especially Dennis Schroeder. And then Caldwell Pope, he also had an amazing game. You could say it was his best game as a Laker. He finished 9 of 17 from the field, 6 of 12 from the 3-point line, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. He grabbed a rebound, 1 steal, finished with 29 points. You could argue that was Caldwell Pope's best game as a Laker in the past couple of years. Like I said, so the spacing opens up when you bring in Anthony Davis, which is ironic because when you bring on a big, you normally don't add spacing. It collapses space. But because Anthony Davis can bring out to the mid post, bring out to the wing, it opens up the space. So that allows more spacing for shooters like Caldwell Pope to get open shots and better looks. And so, he shot 6 of 12 from the 3-point line. And it shows that his aggressiveness is what I also like, too, that he continues to shoot. And then also, like I said, Dennis Schroeder, he finished with 25 points. I think this is Schroeder's best game as a Laker so far. But this is what the Lakers were expecting when they signed him in the offseason. So Schroeder is a great point guard, obviously. And though they didn't get the W, they didn't get the win. But I think it was a sign of good things to come for the Lakers when LeBron returns from his injury and AD gets into his rhythm. I do think it's a sign of good things to come. The only thing that worries me is how will Drummond fare with AD and LeBron. You guys already know my stance. So Drummond, when it comes to playoffs, is going to play sparing minutes because he's a dinosaur and he can't play in all situations. So I want to see how they react with that in the playoffs. The regular season is fine. But when it comes to playoffs, he's not going to be able to play every game. And quite frankly, he's not going to be able to play consistently in every series, depending on who they match up with. If they match up with a team like, say, Phoenix, or maybe a team like maybe even the Clippers or Portland got teams that like to get up and down. Drummond's not going to be able to play because he won't be able to, it's going to just clog up space for the rest of the guys, and it's not going to be beneficial. But the Lakers, and I talked about when LeBron initially got hurt, that if they can just remain 500 and keep that top five, remain in the top five, or even top four, so they have home court advantage, that they'll be okay going to the playoffs. Well, a month later, the Lakers are at the 5 seed, 2 games ahead of the Mavericks, who have the 6 seed. They are 11 games above 500, 9 games back of the 1 seed, Utah Jazz. So if the playoffs were to end today, they'd be matched up with the Denver Nuggets, who we're going to talk about later on in the show, who also have their own myriad of injuries. So Lakers are at this point. So I will say this: the Lakers have to remain at least at that 5 seed. Because what happens now, if they fall to the 6, now they have a matchup with the Clippers. And now we're talking about a possible first-round exit. And that's with LeBron and AD possibly not being 100% healthy and in the rhythm when they get back. So we need to be able to understand and see that the Lakers are in a little. Initially I was telling Lakers fans, don't worry, relax, everything's gonna be fine. But I expected them to have a better record than this. I do think they will remain at least the 5 seed, but they have a couple games coming up against the Dallas Mavericks, another game against Dallas that they need to win in order to increase that lead on them within the 6 seed. So these next couple of games, one of these next 6 games, the Lakers need to go at least 500. If we look at their schedule, they have upcoming games against the against Dallas, Orlando, Washington, Sacramento, Toronto. So those are all winnable games. So against Dallas, Orlando, Washington, Sacramento, Toronto, and Denver, the Lakers should go at least 4-2. 4-2, possibly Denver and Dallas, possibly, but they should go at least 4-2 in those next 6 games, and that should keep them at least within the 5 spot, possibly moving them back up to the 4 seed, depending on how Denver fares. But I wouldn't say get in panic mode yet, Lakers. Still a lot of time. Continue to trust the process. The Lakers are in a soft spot of their schedule. Other teams are starting to rest their guys, getting ready for the playoffs, because this whole season has just been filled with injuries, unfortunately, for a lot of NBA teams. So just be patient, relax. I wouldn't hit the panic button yet. As long as the Lakers are in that 4 seed and they don't run into a team like Utah, Phoenix, or the Clippers in that first round, it's going to be okay. It's going to be just fine. So let's see let's check back in on the Lakers after these 6 games and see where they're at. And then we can find give a more accurate assumption of where they are and where they stand. But another team that is doing superbly this season are the New York Knicks. Who would have thought? Another historic franchise that was muddled with mediocrity and frustration and, quite frankly, ineptitude, is now a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. And another team in the Eastern Conference that is on a little hot streak right now, the Washington Wizards. In the next segment, I'm going to be analyzing those 2 teams and what impact they can have on the Eastern Conference in these playoffs coming up. So stick around for that. It's definitely not something you're going to want to miss.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us after the break. So in the previous segment, we talked about Anthony Davis and his return from his calf injury and how he looked. And we talked about the Lakers' playoff chances and how they're slowly slipping down, and they might end up possibly having to play in a playing game. I ended that segment by saying as long as they can maintain a top 4 seed, then Lakers fans had nothing to worry about. I told them to relax. Everything's going to be fine. This was last month. This is before the Lakers went on this losing streak. Now, I didn't expect them. I expect them to perform better than they have. So at this point in time, there's a little worry to be had, but don't pull the emergency button yet, or don't pull the emergency valve yet. Still got time. Still have time. Now, I do want to talk about. Let's shift over to the Eastern Conference, because there is some positive things I want to talk about that I've seen in the Eastern Conference over the past couple of days. And one of these things has been more consistent throughout the season. But this other, I wouldn't call it an anomaly, but this special occasion, special circumstance that I've noticed has popped on the scene quite recently. And it's something that I'm happy to see, and it's something that is actually surprising me. That is the Washington Wizards winning streak. And as of today on Saturday, they're winners of 6 straight. 7 straight games. Sorry, they won yesterday against Oklahoma City. Winners of 7 straight games. And now they're in if the season was to end today, they'd be in the play-in games as the 10 seed. And I've been able to watch a lot of their games this year. And it got to a point where I couldn't watch them play anymore because they just didn't play any defense. But the reason they don't play any defense, or it appears that they don't play any defense, because they don't have much of a post presence. Now, Thomas Bryant, their starting center, he got hurt earlier in the year with a knee injury. And now they have Robin Lopez manning the front court. And I thought to myself, okay, well, that's why they're not playing defense. But then I realized, well, even with Thomas Bryant on the court, who's an undersized big, he's there more to stretch the floor and provide spacing on offensive end. Even with Thomas Bryant on the floor, they still didn't play much defense. And then I thought to myself, okay, what's the problem? Why are they not playing defense? And so I had to check the metrics and the stats, and so they're averaging 114 points a game, which is the 8th most in the league. Okay, not bad. Now they're giving up 117 points a game, which is 2nd worst in the league. Oh, okay, now there's a cause for concern. So what's causing all this? What is going on right now? So then I look at their pace. And their pace is actually the best in the league at 104.1. And then that's when it hit me. Like, okay, here's the problem. Here is the problem. They are moving entirely too quick. And I was surprised that this didn't hit me earlier when I was watching their film. They move so quickly. So the quicker you shoot the ball, the more possessions that are going to be had in a game. The more possessions a team has, the more likely they are to score more points. So Washington, they like to attack early and score early. And what I mean by that is, so you got guards like Russell Westbrook and Neto that are attacking early, pushing it up early, and they're normally shooting the first 3 or the first layup that they get. And since their goal is to get more possessions, they're going to allow their opponents to get more possessions as well. And Washington isn't entirely athletic on the wing. They have Rui Hachimura, who's probably their most athletic wingman. But outside of him, there's not much athleticism on that wing. So on the drives, on the fast break, the Wizards players are getting blown by. And so their opponents are getting easy attacks to the basket, which allows them to get kickouts as well. And you're allowing teams to do that, plus the multiple possessions, they're going to score more points. And so that was the Wizards' biggest problem this first part of the season, that they couldn't play any defense because they were giving teams so many possessions. And then there was a point in the season as well where they were turning the ball over quite rapidly, and that was due to Russell Westbrook's poor decision-making. But the reason that they're on the streak that they're on now is because they're starting to play defense. Well, starting to play better defense for their standards. So I said that they're on average, they're allowing 117 points a game. So on their current win streak, so they beat the Jazz 125, 121. That was above their average. They beat the Kings 123, 111. They held the Kings below the average points they give up. They beat the Pelicans 117, 115. 115 also below the average. They beat the Pistons 121 to 100, also below the average. They beat the Thunder 119 to 107, also below the average. They beat the Warriors 118 to 114, also below the average. They beat the Thunder 129 to 109, also below the average. So by technicality, they are playing better defense, quote unquote, than what they've been playing all year because they're holding these teams below the average. Now, I still don't think that defense is much better, but better nonetheless. And Washington is they're one of the fastest teams in the NBA because they like to get up and down the court because of their pace and like to score early. So with a team like that, you to bring in a football reference, you want to have a bend don't break sort of defense, kind of defense. or you just want to get enough stops where you can just get enough stops to, to give yourself a sizable lead or advantage. You're not expected to get 4 or 5 stops in a row. Washington isn't. But just get enough stops to where you can maintain a lead by the end of the game. And another cause for their emergence and success during these past 7 games is quite frankly Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has been playing a lot better during this recent win streak. Russell Westbrook is averaging a triple-double right now, and he's going to average a triple-double on the season. He's averaging 31 points. Sorry, he's averaging 21 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, 1 steal a game. And Russell Westbrook is going to win the assist title this year. And what Westbrook has been able to do, he's been able to limit his turnovers as well during his past win streak. He's been able to limit his turnovers and be more efficient with his shooting. Now, I don't like the fact that he's shooting 64% from the free throw line. You guys know, as a guard, I feel like we should be shooting at least 80. But Westbrook has been a catalyst. And it looks like that him and Beal are starting to learn to play well together. So during the beginning of the season, Scott Brooks would stagger them. He would stagger Westbrook and Beal because they didn't know how to play together and won't be too ball dominant. But now Westbrook is starting to be much more passive and play more as his role as a point guard. And Bradley Beal is the benefactor of that. Bradley Beal is now still averaging 31 points a game, which is good for, if not first, should be second in the league. But he's averaging 31 points on the season, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting almost 50% from the field, shooting 90% from the free throw line. So the consistency of Bradley Beal has been a factor, along with the emergence of solid play by Russell Westbrook. Has been the catalyst for this Washington team. And because this Washington team is so explosive on offense, a lot of teams aren't going to want to see them in the playoffs. Now, how will this translate over to the half-court set when the game starts to slow down in the playoffs? That remains to be seen. Now, I don't think Washington is good enough defensively to make any sort of run in the playoffs, but it'll be exciting to see them give teams like Brooklyn, who they've beaten multiple times this year, or Philly, or even Charlotte, whoever they play in the playing game or who they end up playing in the playoffs. It'll be interesting to see Washington give them fits with their offensive prowess. But I do think Washington is going to end up playing in the playing games. Depending on who they match up with, we could say that they'll win the playing game and make it to the playoffs. But let's see who they end up being matched up with first. But another team that has been pretty surprisingly good, to say the least, this entire season actually, is the New York Knickerbockers. Yeah, the New York Knicks, who actually themselves are on a 8-game winning streak. Yeah, wow, who would have thought the Knicks would be the 4 seed? As of right now, the season was ended today, they'd be the 4 seed. And they're being led by Julius Randle, who, in my opinion, is going to win Most Improved Player. He's averaging a double-double with 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists. And RJ Barrett has emerged, and he's turned into the second-round pick that they expected him to be. He's averaging 17 points a game and 3 assists. Derrick Rose has been a phenomenal six man. By averaging, coming off the bench, he's averaging almost 14 points. And also their rookie guard, Emmanuel Quickly, has impressed me as well. And Nerlens Noel has also been solid. Kevin Knox, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson, even Austin Rivers and Taj Gibson. All these, they have a solid group of guys. And a lot of these guys are Tom Thibodeau's guys, like Derrick Rose and Taj Gibson. Guys that played under Tom Thibodeau before. And Tibbs has brought back a winning culture and a winning mentality to this Knicks franchise. Now, I was reading a story online the other day where Tibbs actually had to have what they call a blackout day. And he had to refuse players from going to the gym on their off day because they wanted to get some work in. But Tibbs had to kick them out the gym. And that's the mindset. That's the grind that you want to have. That's that mentality that you want to have. I want to get better every day. You want that in the franchise, in your organization. Because like we talked before, that's a cultural thing. That's culture. And it's symbiotic because Derrick Rose actually had said in a statement a couple of days ago that Tibbs was in a huddle and he said as a player, Derrick Rose, that was the first time he ever felt that a coach wanted to win more than he did. And he said, no, there's no way. There's no way you want to win this game more than I do. Hold on. And that's what you want as a player. You want to see that your coach cares. And that they're willing to do whatever it takes to win. And if your coach has that mindset, wants to win that badly, you have to understand that that's going to rub off on the players as well. And what you notice is that the Knicks are they're gritty, right? They like to get into, and they play substantial defense, and their effort is there too. If I could find a stat for how many loose balls they recover, man, I'm sure they'd be first in the league. But they are a very young team that works hard, that hustles every play, and defensively, like I said, they're the best defensive team in the league, and that's what you want to see out of a young team like that, because they're not very long. But they're quick on the wings, which allows them to be more agile on the defensive end, and they can beat the person they're guarding to the spot and cut them off. And they're quick on the passing lanes as well, so they jump a lot of passes. So moving forward, this New York Knicks team is going to be a tough out in the playoffs. Now they're still young. I think they still have some room to build off of. I do think they need a more solid big man. But they're a few pieces away from being legitimate contenders in the Eastern Conference. But it's refreshing to see the Knicks back in a positive light. For so long, they have been the laughing stock and at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the Eastern Conference. But it's good to see this historic and storied franchise, moving back up into the positive light. So it's going to be nice to see how they perform towards the end of the season. But it's nice to see them be successful. Yeah, so that's guys, that's what we have for this segment. And I want to shift back to the Western Conference actually and talk about a really good game that I saw last night between the Nuggets and the Warriors. And I got some takeaways from that game that I want to share with you guys. Draymond Green, is he one of the best passers we've ever seen? And Steph Curry, is he serious about trying to win MVP? These are all some of the things I want to talk about in this next segment. So guys, just stick around. Enjoy the commercial break. I'm going to be right back to talk about these things. And also, I'm also going to tell you guys how to deal with a difficult coach in our last segment. So, guys, we still got a lot much more to talk about. Still have a lot more basketball to digest. I know you guys are loving this right now. So just stick around. Don't worry, we'll be right back. These are definitely not some things you're going to want to miss.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, guys, welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us after the commercial break. In my opinion, this has been a pretty good show so far, guys. We have talked about quite a few things already. In the first segment, we talked about Anthony Davis and his return from injury, and how his return from injury and LeBron's return, whether it's sooner or later, how that's going to affect the Lakers' playoff chances, or where they end up falling at, where they end up having to play in the play-in tournament, or whether they remain at the 5 seed, or will they continue to drop. And the second segment, we talked about the Washington Wizards, their 7-game winning streak, and what's causing them to play better, the increase in defense, the better point guard play of Russell Westbrook, and the continuing scoring dominance of Bradley Beal. And we also talk about the Knicks, whether they are for real or whether they are this is just an anomaly, an aberration. I think they are the real deal. They're a young, up and coming team that plays with much intensity on the defensive end, led by Tom Thibodeau, their coach, who has brought in a winning culture to the New York Knicks franchise, which is something they've missed for the past couple of years. And now, guys, I want to talk about something I want to expand upon something I talked about last week, actually. And that was Steph Curry and what I felt like he needed to do in order to have a serious stake in the MVP race. Now, last night they played the Golden State Warriors. They played the Denver Nuggets, and they won the game by a score of 118-97. Now, mind you, the Nuggets are without Jamal Murray, and they also ended up losing another one of their guards, Will Barton, due to a hamstring injury. So Will Barton is going to be missing a significant amount of time because they said the hamstring injury is quite serious. Now, the Nuggets are just riddled with injuries right now with Jamal Murray and Will Barton and a couple other guys. Now, I said earlier that, in my opinion, the Denver Nuggets, with the addition of Aaron Gordon, was the third best team in the Western Conference. And that I wouldn't be surprised if they made it to the Western Conference Finals. But with all these injuries, with Jamal Murray likely being out the rest of the year and Will Barton more than likely being out for the rest of the year as well, it's hard for me to see Denver getting past even the first round, quite frankly. So if the playoffs were to end today, they'd have a matchup with the Los Angeles Lakers, who are at the 5 seed. Without a healthy Murray or Will Barton, I don't see Denver getting past the Lakers, who would have LeBron and Anthony Davis back, whether they're at 100% or whether they have their rhythm completely back would remain to be seen. But even with that, I couldn't see Denver getting past the Lakers. So with the way things are presently constructed, I don't see Denver getting past even the first round due to all their injuries. Now, Jokic has kept his stats up. He's been playing well, but they're in the Western Conference. It's hard for Jokic to do what he needs to do, everything necessary to keep Denver afloat. Now with the loss of Murray, as I said previously, that the addition of Aaron Gordon prevented teams from doubling Jokic with Gordon back. But now that Murray's out, teams can go back to doubling Jokic because they don't have that third option. They have Michael Porter Jr., but teams are still going to be able to can now double Jokic because Murray's out, not going. And by doubling Jokic, obviously taking the ball out of his hands, which might lead to open passing lanes, but there's not another scorer as the likes of Murray on that Denver team. No one's not as serious as a scoring threat as Murray is. So I don't see Denver going far in the playoffs without Murray or without Will Barton. But this team is still young, and they will be a threat next year. But with the way things are presently constructed, no, I don't see them making a run at all in these playoffs. There are too many injuries. And a lot of these teams in the NBA have injuries due to the compact scheduling and the lack of rest. And not to get on my soapbox or nothing, but this just shows you how greedy the American system can be. And I'm not sure if it's called greed, but that's just the way the nature of the business is. These franchises, these television companies, they have to make money, right? They got to recoup off the losses from last year. So they got to fit as many games in a short amount of time to not interfere with the Olympic scheduling as well. And these guys, these guys have what the finals were in October, and then the start of the season was on December 25th. So that's barely 2 months of an off season, because you need at least 30 days in your off season just to recover, and then you gotta get right back into training. That's nowhere near enough time, and now you're playing 75 games from December to June. There's no surprise that so many guys are getting bruises and tears and strains. That's not enough time for your body to recover, and they're going to break down. And so what's happening is you're not even getting adequate basketball because so many stars are hurt and injured right now. So you were so focused on pushing a product out, but now the product isn't even good. And who's going to want to watch an NBA game or a playoff game if the stars aren't even playing? They're hurt. You sacrifice quantity for your quality. And I wish I had the numbers on right now, but it'd be interesting to see if NBA ratings are up or down right now due to the injuries. But let me get off my soapbox and get back to the topic at hand. Yeah, I just don't see how Nuggets can be a formidable threat in these playoffs with the injuries they have. But granted, they did run into a Warriors team that is on an amazing streak right now, mainly due to Steph Curry. So with that win, the Golden State Warriors are now at 500. They still remain the 10th seed and would have a spot in the playing game. Now, as I said, for me to give Steph Curry a serious stake in the MVP race, they would need to move up to at least the 7th seed. At least the 7th seed, which right now is owned by the Portland Trail Blazers. And as of right now, the Golden State Warriors are 2 games back in the loss column of Portland. But during this game against the Denver Nuggets, Steph Curry had 32 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists in 34 minutes. And he didn't play well against Washington. He only scored 18 points the previous game, but he bounced back in this game. I was looking at a stat, and actually Steph Curry before the month of April was on pace to shoot his worst, quote unquote, his worst shooting percentage of his career on the season. Now, mind you, Steph Curry's worst shooting percentage is some of these other NBA players' best shooting percentage. So let's just keep that in perspective as well. But Curry is on perhaps the hottest streak I've ever seen an NBA player be on from the three-point line. And it's, like I said previously, it's extremely impressive, and it's a feat to behold. And it needs to give credit. It needs to be given its credit. But what I really want to talk about is something I noticed during the game. Draymond Green had 12 rebounds, 19 assists, and 2 points. Now that's one of those Jason Kidd triple doubles where the points total is really low, but the rebound and assist column is extremely high. And I started thinking, is Draymond Green one of the better passers in the NBA? Is Draymond Green one of the better passers in the NBA? Something that Draymond Green gets a lot of flack for, or people want to say about Draymond Green, is that he's simply a product of the system. That the only reason he's playing well is because he's in the Golden State system, and that he wouldn't be able to do these things if he wasn't in Golden State. Last time I checked, though, to make a backdoor pass in a half-court set, that doesn't matter what system you're in. You still have to have the skill set and the hand-eye coordination to make that pass. So don't tell me that Draymond Green being able to look away and make a backdoor pass to a cutting Andrew Wiggins or cutting Steph Curry, it's because of the system. No, you still have to get that pass there. Now, are there more opportunities to make that pass because of the system? Yeah, I'll give you that. But the pass still has to be made, nonetheless. And what you notice by watching Draymond's film, Draymond does an excellent job of passing the ball with his offhand. And what I mean by that is, so he's dribbling up court in transition, right? And he does an amazing job of having the ball on his left and passing it without getting the ball over back to his right. Just passing with his left. And the guys that play basketball that are listening to this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. How if you're right-handed and you're on a transition break and you say it's like a 3-on-2, that ability to make that chest pass with your left hand going full speed can be difficult if you're right-handed. And vice versa, if you're left-handed and you're making a chest pass off the bounce with your right hand, it's difficult to keep that on target and under control. And Draymond Green does an amazing job of doing that offhand pass with his left hand. And it's always on target. And it's always leading his teammate. So as a great passer, just like in football, you want to lead your You want to lead your teammates open or pass them make the pass to the open spot. And another point guard, or someone that was really good at that is Magic Johnson. He was good at passing his teammates open. And just like in football, great quarterbacks, they don't throw to the receiver. They throw to the open area where the receiver is going to be. And that's what I mean by passing them open. Like, they're not open on that initial cut, but you're passing it to where they're to get them open. So you kind of leading them on that pass, knowing that they'll be open right there in that moment. And Draymond Green does a good job of that. And that's not a product of the system. That is Draymond Green's skill set being shown. Now, does he get more opportunities because he's in that system? Yes. 100%, absolutely. And there's nothing to be argued with about that. But I will sit here and tell you that that's not everyone can make those passes. You can't put anyone in that system and tell them to make that pass. Draymond Green can make that pass because he has the skill set to do it. He simply just gets more opportunities to do it because he's in the system. And that's how the system works. And one thing I like about Draymond Green's game as well, that it's all a quick movement. So as guards or NBA players, as soon as you catch the ball, you get three options, right? You're going to pass it, you're going to shoot it, or you're going to attack. Everything that Draymond Green does is quick, right? So he peeks at the rim every time he touches the ball, which automatically makes him a scoring threat, even if they're playing off of him. But then he peeks at the rim, and then he already knows what he wants to do. He's either going to pass it on that flare screen to Curry, he's going to pass to a curling guard, or the big man that's popping out at the post on the high elbow, or he's attacking, drawing in multiple defenders, or he's shooting it. Now, could he shoot better from the 3-point line? Yeah, sure. Would that make it easier for him to penetrate because the defense is now having to step up on him because he's a better shooter? Yes, but that's neither here nor there. He is still able to make those passes and make those reads because it's quick. It's quick. Everything is quick. As soon as he catches it, he peeks out the rim. He's either shooting, attacking, or passing the ball. And as professional players or basketball players at any level, we have to be quick. You know, basketball is simplistic, and it's true in its trueness essence. Basketball is simplistic. We're attacking, we're shooting, or we're passing. And people don't like Draymond Green's game because it's simple and he keeps it at that level. But that goes to show you guys it's simple. Basketball is simple and it can still be effective even when it's simple. So if you were to ask me, could Draymond Green do this in another system? Yeah. Yeah, he could do it in another system for sure. Would he get as many opportunities? I don't know. I don't think so. Or actually, I don't know because it depends on the system. But I do know in this system that he's playing with in Golden State, he's getting multiple opportunities to make those plays because of the system that's being ran. You can't blame him for being in a good system. That's just where he got drafted to. You can't blame someone for being in a good position. He's taking advantage of it. So just appreciate what he is doing with the situation that he's in, instead of trying to take things away. Be appreciative for what's going on in this moment and what people are doing, as opposed to trying to nitpick and denigrate or, poo-poo the things they are doing just because you don't believe that what they're doing or the work they're doing is valid. It doesn't matter. He's producing right now. And that's all we can say. The stats do not lie. But when Draymond Green is aggressive and pushing the ball and getting the defense on their heels, it does open up the offense for Golden State and allow Steph Curry to get more open looks as well, which leads to him getting some easier scoring opportunities, which opens it up for everybody, which is part of the reason that Golden State has been on the tear that they're on, because yes, Steph Curry has been shooting the lights out phenomenally, but Draymond Green has been much more aggressive over this win streak as well, which is not something that a lot of people are saying or have pointed out. But after watching the film, that's one thing I noticed, that that's one of the key components, that Draymond Green has been much more aggressive on the offensive end. Not to mention Golden State now playing much better defensively as well. But that's always going to be the case. When you play better defensively, you're going to, just like Washington, you're going to get more victories. But those were my takeaways from that game specifically. It was a great game to watch. Like I said, Steph Curry, for me to give him a serious stake in the MVP race, they need to at least get to the 7th seed. Then we can start seriously considering him as an MVP candidate. Unfortunately, Denver may have lost all their playoff chances, or lost serious consideration for the playoff chances in terms of moving forward, like advancing, due to their injuries. But they still are a good young team, and it's going to be exciting to watch them for years to come. But as of right now, I can't take them as a serious playoff threat due to the amount of injuries they have. Guys, in our next segment, difficult coaches. Do you have them? Everyone's had them at some point. But how do we deal with difficult coaches? There's a right way and there's a wrong way. So stick around. After the break, I'm going to talk about that. And it's definitely not something you're going to want to miss. So stick around and be sure to listen in.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Everybody, welcome back to our final segment of the show. Thank you so much for continuing to tune in and listen to us. And listen to me over the course of the show. We've talked about quite a bit on the show today. You know, from Anthony Davis and his return from injury, and should the Lakers feel stressed or worried? Should they hit the panic button right now? I say no. Though the Lakers are continuing to drop in the standings, they're still at the 5 seed. There's no cause for there's a little more concern than what we had a month ago, but don't hit the panic button yet. LeBron is still going to return. And Anthony Davis is going to get his rhythm back. Just give him a couple of games to get his basketball win and get back to his basketball shape. The Lakers will continue to improve. But Lakers fans, take it easy for right now. Relax. Don't hit that panic button yet. Things aren't as bad as they seem. We also talked about the Washington Wizards and The current streak that they've been on this month of April, they're on a 7-game winning streak. They are currently if the season was to end today, they would be in the play-in tournament. And they've increased their defensive efficiency. They're playing better on the defensive end. Russell Westbrook is playing much more efficiently as a point guard, still averaging triple-double. Bradley Beal is still scoring the ball at a high clip. And the Wizards look like they'll be a tough out in the playoffs. That's if they make it past the play-in tournament. And also the New York Knicks. Are they the real deal? I believe they are. And they're currently set at the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. And they're the number 1 defensive team in the NBA. They've got a lot of young studs on that team that like to work and get after it. They're long. They like to jump the passing lanes. And they've created a winning culture there under Tom Thibodeau. So now the expectancy is to win. When you have that mindset and you have that thought process, it changes everything moving forward. So are the Knicks the real deal? Yeah, I think they are. And it's going to be exciting to see them play in the playoffs, whoever they're matched up with. We also talked about the Nuggets and Warriors. Give a little recap on that. Is Steph Curry in serious MVP contention? I don't think so. Though he did play amazing. He had a great game against the Nuggets. I still think it's just a case of too little too late, and they would have to cover too much ground in the standings for me to give him serious consideration. But what he's doing now is phenomenal and needs to be given credit. We also talked about the Nuggets and how serious of a threat are they going to be when the playoffs roll around due to the number of injuries they have to Jamal Murray, Will Barton, and a few other players as well. How deep of a run can they really make in the playoffs? How serious of a threat will they really be? I don't think they'll get very far with the injuries they have now. The list have Jokic, who might end up winning MVP this year. I don't think they can be a serious threat to the playoffs just because they had too many injuries. Also talked about Draymond Green and why he's one of the best passers in the NBA and why his skill set and what he does will translate to any team that he plays for. And by saying that what he does and the success he has is only because he's a product of the system in Golden State is a very huge insult to him as a player. Because he still needs the necessary skills and tools to perform what he's doing, even in the system. Just because you're in the system doesn't mean you can make those plays. You still have to have the skill set to make those plays in the system. But you're in the system, so you have more opportunities to make those plays. That's all. But in this last segment, I want to talk about difficult coaches. It's something we've all experienced during our time as athletes, specifically basketball players. So how are we supposed to deal with difficult coaches? And when I say difficult coaches, I need to say this. Just because you're not getting playing time or the amount of playing time that you want, that doesn't make your coach difficult. So if politics ever have to come into play when it comes to your playing time, you're not as good as you think you are. And you need to get better. Because if you were unequivocally better than the other person that you're splitting playing time with, then you would be getting that playing time, and politics wouldn't need to come into play. Because you can't hide talent. If you're good enough, you're going to be on that court. So just because you're not getting playing time doesn't mean your coach is difficult. You need to focus on you and get better and hone in on your craft. But there are extraneous circumstances where coaches can hold grudges or be vindictive against certain players. And if that's the case, then you need to put yourself in a better environment, better culture, better organization are considered transferring, where you won't be in that situation. But like I said, even in that situation right there, coaches need to do what they need to do what they can to keep their job. So if you're talented enough to be on that court, the coach is going to, despite how much of a grudge he has or vindictive he is against you, they're going to put you on the court to play because their job's on the line. And like I said, you can't hide talent. So that's not what I mean when I say difficult coaches. But coaches can be difficult for a number of reasons. It could be their coaching style, it could be their attitude, their philosophical teachings, their tone. There are a lot of things that can make coaches difficult. But the key thing when it comes to dealing with difficult coaches, especially on the court, is to do what the coach says. If you, and I know it sounds hard, but if you do what the coach says, then you're gonna get more playing time. So say for example, say you're a post player and your coach is telling you that whenever you catch on the block, he wants you to face the basket and then go into your low post move. Now, if you want to get playing time as a low post player, you best believe you better be catching the ball in the low block, facing up, and then going to your low post move. Because if that's what the coach wants, then that's what the coach wants. And if you want to play, you have to do that. You have to do what the coach says. And I wish there was the other way around it, but that's just the nature of the game. If you want to play, you have to do what the coach says. Because by doing what the coach says, you build that trust with the coach. And coaches are only going to have players on the court that you trust. So if you want to build that trust, you have to do what the coach says. Another way to deal with difficult coaches on the court is to ask questions. If you have a question about what the coach says, ask it, whether it be about how to run the press, how to handle the pressure, where do you want the entry pass at. Ask the questions because it shows that you're engaged and that you're trying to learn and want to get better. Most guys that have a problem with difficult coaches, they get checked out, they tune out, and they stop listening to what the coach says. And basically, coaches can pick up on that. They can feel when players aren't listening. And they feel if players aren't listening, then they're not going to give them the necessary attention. They're not going to put them in and give them playing time. So show that you're engaged and continue to ask questions. I guarantee you, if you have that question, there's at least 3 other teammates or people on that staff that have the same question as you. So don't be afraid to ask those questions. Like I said, shows that you're engaged, shows that you're listening, and shows that you want to learn and want to get better. And coaches do appreciate that, no matter how difficult they are. Another way to deal with difficult coaches is to be consistent. Be consistent in your play. And when I say that, I mean most coaches would rather have a player that is consistently at a 6 or a 7 as opposed to a player that streaks up to an 8 or 9, but then drops back down to a 5 or a 4. Most coaches would rather have that consistent 6 or 7 player. So just be consistent. Don't worry about making the no-look pass. Don't worry about finishing with a two-hand slam every time you attack the basket. Just make the consistent play. Be consistent. Make the right play every time. And that shows consistency. And like I said, that builds a certain level of trust with you and the coach. And the coach trusts you, you're going to be left on the court. So focus on making the consistent play. Don't worry about making the flashy play every time. But in terms of dealing with difficult coaches off the court, there is a certain way to deal with them. And I would say just keep things simple. So if you know it's difficult for you to be around your coach outside of basketball, then don't be around them, or don't be around them outside of basketball on a consistent basis. But that doesn't mean completely ignore the coach. Keep it cordial. Still show sincerity when you walk into the coach's office. Hey, coach, how you doing? How's the family doing? Oh, that's great to hear. Keep it short and simple, but still show sincerity and generosity. But don't put yourself in a situation where you know it's going to just wear down your mental health and put you in a bad state of mind. Get out of there. Don't do extra. Just keep things simple. You should never have to force a relationship with anybody. Just keep things simple and say, hey, coach, how you doing? It's good to hear. Oh, how's the family? It's good. Then keep it pushing. That's fine. That's okay. Because at the end of the day, basketball at the collegiate level and at the professional level, it's a business. And coaches are going to do what they need to do to keep their job, and so are the players. It doesn't say anywhere in the contract or in the scholarship that you have to have a relationship with your player, with your teammates or coaches outside of basketball. But don't get that misconstrued. The best organizations and the best programs, players and coaches do have a strong relationship outside of basketball. Because like I said in the previous episode or a couple episodes ago, when you care about someone, you're willing to do more for them. So as a player, if you feel like your coach cares about you, you're willing to do more for them on the court. And as a coach, if you feel like your player cares about you, you're willing to do more for them as well. So what you see in strong cultures, strong programs is that coaches and players do have a strong relationship outside of basketball. But what you see in poor organizations and poorly ran programs is that they don't have that relationship outside of basketball. It's strictly business. But not every culture, not every organization, not every program is going to be great. And so you're going to run into those problems. But that's how you deal with it if you are in that situation. You have to keep things simple and just say, hey, coach, how you doing? It's good. Show some sincerity and generosity, but continue to push forward. Because at the end of the day, this is a business, and coaches are going to do what they need to do in order to keep their job. Just like as players, you need to do what you need to do to keep your spot as well. But difficult coaches is something that we're all going to experience at some point in our life. And the reason I'm saying all this is because I had my experience with difficult coaches as well at the collegiate level and at the professional level. But like I said, the best way to deal with them and the best way to get playing time is to just do what the coach says when you're on the court to build that trust. And we have to be able to work hard at all times and still trust the process. So just because you feel like you're not getting playing time because the coach is vindictive or has a grudge against you, you can't let that affect your work ethic and your drive and your goal. You have to continue to work hard no matter the circumstances, no matter the adversity that you're going through. Because remember, like I said, you cannot hide talent. Eventually, that coach is going to have to put you in there and you're going to perform well. And you're going to show why you should be playing. And that coach doesn't put you in, despite you being the best player on the team, he's going to lose his job because he's not putting the best players on the team on the court, and they're not going to win. So just trust the process. Continue to work hard no matter the adversity, no matter the circumstances that you're going through. See, so often when we're going through our struggles of adversity and of stress, we feel like it's the end of the world, and we feel like time is going by so slow. Because when we're going through adversity or a certain moment, we're solely focused on this moment alone. But we have to remember this moment of adversity and stress is minuscule. It's so minute. It's a fraction of a second compared to the rest of our lives. So we have to remember that this is a very small moment in my life where I'm facing adversity or a challenge, and I'm going to get through it. I'm going to push through. I'm going to persevere because I don't have a choice. I need to get to where I need to get to. I'm going to get past this. I'm going to reach my goal. This is such a small moment in my life. It's nothing. It's going to get better. So think long term. Think on a grander scale. Don't be so focused on this moment of stress and adversity. Know that you're going to persevere and know that you're going to get through. Because no moment of nothing last forever in that moment of adversity. You're going to get through it. It's not going to last forever. And you have to trust it. Trust the process. Continue to work hard. And that pertains to life as well. Just because you're going through something in life right now, it's fine. It's okay. But it's not going to last forever. So continue to push through. Continue to fight through. Because you're strong enough to get through it. And you're going to get through it. But guys, that's all we have for the show today. As I continue to say and always will say, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening to me talk about this wonderful game of basketball. It's such a blessing to have this platform. And thank you guys for listening, because none of this is possible without you guys. So thank you guys for tuning in to this GSMC podcast network, the GSMC podcast basketball podcast show, hosted by me, Casuan Caudle. As you guys know, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all streaming services. We love the feedback that you guys give, so continue to leave us reviews and give your feedback. We really appreciate it. It allows us to grow as a program. And guys, this is such a blessing. I just love talking to you guys. This is such an amazing opportunity to have. And I'm so grateful that you guys continue to listen to me. I'm truly grateful for you guys. So guys, I'll be back later on this week to talk some more basketball and get more topics of discussion with you guys. So till next time, continue to stay safe and make smart decisions, guys. Peace.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.